About 10,000 years ago, we defined our current society and behavior through the appearance of the psychology of ownership. This development has marked our lives and evolution in a dramatic way ever since. Now it threatens our sustainable existence. A new psychological approach is breaking with this heritage, the one of our sustainable continuity as human being. Before this urge for property and control, humans were nomads on Earth, tracking hunters and food collectors. We made use of our environment to survive. This changed when we learned to develop our landscapes for agriculture and cattle. We started to stay in groups at the same place. The approach of ownership, instead of usage, developed into layers of elitarian hierarchies and forced subordination. With the psychology of property and control, also the phenomenon of fear appeared. The fear to lose something that provides a sense of security or status. This all evolved into two mainstream hierarchically dominant expressions. The one of territorial ownership through kingdoms and those of religious expressions around fear. After quite some time, a variety of islands of ownership appeared: territorial, innovation, trade, knowledge, religion, housing, healthcare, banking. As an individual, we got disconnected from our natural environment and the natural fundamentals of our existence while growing blindly dependent on the system. The hierarchies had learned to sustain themselves in two ways: through regulatory suppression and through rewards for loyalty and favors. Money appeared as a neutral means for trade and rewards, with property as collateral without the need to give it away. Already in the Middle Ages, English landowners came up with a way to make money by leasing land usage to the highest bidders. Thus, capitalism emerged, as a technique to grow the money supply without creating value oneself, solely through speculation with shortages or the needs of others. During the industrial era, business and government structures emerged, that cooperated together to further develop the financial growth. Speculative growth and globalization was shaped further with the introduction of innovative means of transportation and the use of new technologies. Meanwhile, the needs for energy grew with the usage of fossil fuels and the corresponding extra damage to our natural ecosystem. Human beings, suffering lower life expectancies, social inequalities, poverty, illnesses and injustice, started uprisings to demand for their human rights. Social domestication is important for the elitarian power levels, that depend on the deployment of the masses, fearing unrest. Public diversion of attention happens through bread and play, or by doing some concessions. When, however, social rest cannot be achieved anymore through suppression or concessions, the elite grab their war instruments to impose their will. But also the elitarian power became fragmented, while public support for change was getting so big that at the end of the 18th century the first regulating constitutions were introduced. The general public was offered, for the first time, a very limited, democratic say in the world of political, financial interests. Only those that had work could participate due to access to money. The rest of the population was excluded. These became more assertive and started to demand for equal opportunities. The 19th century saw various democratic revolutions which demanded societal reforms in which human interests would receive attention. The two world wars in the 20th century brought hatred, greed, poverty, hierarchical manipulations, oppression and inhumane destruction. This had great impact and ultimately led to the creation of the welfare state in the post-war 1970s, to maintain social obedience and support of the system. It became a costly structure of social cushions, with institutionalized care services and thick layers of regulatory bureaucracies. To finance this, the capitalist consumer society was further stimulated, the gold collateral for money was abandoned, while financial performance pressure was increased. This in turn produced inflation that was compartmentalized as a growth economy, to maintain the public interest, fund the social structures or remedial measures. This altogether developed a further generalized, degenerative spiral on us human beings and nature. The global banking crisis in 2008 showed us the unreliability of the financial world. The world's problems were piling up. And so were the tensions. For the first time in 10,000 years, the elitarian hierarchies started to understand that not everything can be solved through greed, money, power, regulations or war. Some old power establishments started to open the doors for new approaches. Sustainocracy was such a new format to join and experiment with. Sustainocracy invited all local citizens and institutions to develop the natural essentials of our existence together. It offered an evolution, not a revolution. Thanks to the positive invitation, turning points could be detected, both in the world of institutions and the self-aware, engaged citizens. The elite accepted their authentic specialized, facilitating leadership role, in collaboration with the citizens' communities. Instead of fighting or finger-pointing towards each other, we connected and prioritized, 4 times win complex projects, within the scope of our human essentials. This new context is not primarily based on pure desire for ownership, it is collaborative and innovative in the field of sustainable essentials of our existence. The area's community became the first manifestation of Sustainocracy, working interdisciplinary together on regional environmental and human health. The area's approach became unique since it has no financial means or personnel of its own. It only has committed partners in its core values-driven environment. Within the new context of area's shared responsibilities, literally everything changes in the societal experience, with new, positive opportunities for all. Out of areas, the COS3I initiative, pronounced as COSI, was born when we realized that our own health and wellness was largely in our own hands. In the current multicultural society, instead of developing fear for the other, we tried to work together on our common values while becoming positively acquainted with each other's cultural characteristics. FRE2SH, pronounced fresh, was born as a community for developing our integral food and nature awareness, engagement and societal transition. At the same time, a new learning environment manifests itself, not as a separate school yet as a collaborative environment with the existing educational layers. We could see how the positive interactive field emerged, based on the common, values-driven commitments. Each silo could be its entire self in the community. A circular environment developed in which existentially needed innovations were connected with the traditional dynamics of trade and growth. The push to compete or regulate disappears and makes way for the power of values-driven collaborations, with mutual recognition and results for everyone. Like this, our habitat can be restored. We, together, avoid the possible collapse of societies or the outburst of war scenarios. The threat is still present, but we can make the difference, together. A totally new societal constitution emerges, while we take 4 times win benefit of the potential and knowledge of all involved, for our sustainable development. For more information or collaboration in Sustainocracy, please have a look at the blog, or contact Jean-Paul Close through the email provided.